The subcommittee will come to order. I note that today's committee activity will be
I object to
viewed.
this joint hearing pursuant to the House rules. This joint hearing requires unanimous consent, and I do not consent.
You are recognized. May I ask the basis for the objection from the ranking member?
I object to this joint hearing pursuant to the House rules. This joint hearing requires unanimous consent, and I do not consent.
Does the lady yield for a question?
Will the ranking member yield?
Madam Ranking Member. Mr. Chairman, I would ask if the lady would yield for a question.
Will the ranking member of the Committee on Financial Services yield to a question? I'll ask again. Will the ranking member of the full Committee on Financial Services yield to a question from the subcommittee chairman?
Mr. Chairman, I would just note, by way of context for the ranking member, I understand your objection, or I understand that you've made it. I just want to get a better insight into what is the basis of your objection, so that if there's something that we can do to remove that problem, we can work in good faith to do so.
I object to this joint hearing because of the corruption of the President of the United States and his ownership of crypto and his oversight of all the agencies. I object.
Mr. Chairman, before I yield, I would just note that a good regulatory product, good regulatory rules of the road, I think would provide an environment where people would have more faith in the marketplace, and I think these conversations are a critically important part of getting there. Thank you.
The chairman of the full Committee on the Financial Services, Mr. Hill, is recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Stile. I want to be really clear and set the record straight today. The ranking member has expressed concern about conflicts of interest, which is why she's disrupting today's joint hearing. Through her actions today, the ranking member has thrown partisanship into what has historically been a strong, good, working bipartisan relationship. For those of you that may not know, we held a similar hearing, a similar joint hearing in this same building in May 2023 under the leadership of Chairman Thompson, then Ranking Member David Scott, former Chairman McHenry, and Ranking Member Waters. The purpose of that hearing, like today's hearing, is to discuss the importance of rules for digital assets so that every market participant must abide by them. I was encouraged by the engagement that we received from last Congress by members on both sides of the aisle. There was overwhelming support from the House Democrats and Republicans on legislation that brings digital asset markets into the regulatory perimeter and closes the gaps in regulation. Gaps that we all agree exist. Gaps that President Biden agrees that exist. Gaps that President Trump agrees that exist. Members worked hard to provide robust consumer protections, and they did so in a manner that would make our constituents proud. We left our differences at the door, and we were honest and transparent in our legislative work. Members on both sides of our committees are committed to crafting legislation to provide that regulatory clarity to encourage responsible actors in the digital asset ecosystem. That's what most of the members in this room are here to discuss today. As the ranking member currently pointed out, to hold a joint hearing, we must receive unanimous consent from both Republicans and Democrats to proceed. The ranking member received ample notice, more than 6 weeks, and negotiated an additional witness for the minority. Yet after that good faith effort, the ranking member is objecting today. We agreed not to notice legislation to this joint hearing, yet the ranking member is objecting today. We determined a seating chart, discussed opening statements and witnesses, yet the ranking member is objecting today. I want to thank Agriculture Ranking Member Craig and her staff, Subcommittee Ranking Member Don Davis, Chairman Benham, and our witnesses who've traveled here to be dedicated to their time to share their views with the committee. I also want to thank Chairman Thompson, Subcommittee Chairs Johnson and Stile, and my staff for your commitment for working relentlessly with the minority. Hearings are an opportunity for Congress and the American people to explore important matters of policy together. Whether we agree or disagree on policy, we hold them publicly so that our constituents can understand how we work to better their lives. This hearing would have served as a forum for financial services and agriculture members to learn from our panelists and discuss solutions and to issues. And given the cross-jurisdictional nature of the work, a joint hearing has been very, very needed. While I understand the ranking member has concerns, but by objecting to this hearing, the ranking member is undermining the opportunity for these two committees to engage in a conversation of vital importance to the American people. That's a loss for our committees, the House, and the public at large. Those of us that remain in this room will not sit idly by and abandon the urgent work we have before us that our committees have set out to do. We will sit together, hear from these good witnesses, and ask questions and learn from your expertise. We'll do the difficult work of finding common ground that on issues like digital assets that matter so strongly to Americans. We will try not to silence one another over policy disagreements. This is just the beginning of the discussion, and I look forward to seeing how we can move forward in a bipartisan way. I yield back to the chair.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
Does the ranking member insist upon her objection?
I insist upon my objection, and I'd like everyone to join me in CVC room 217.
The objection to convening this meeting is heard.
Trump's crypto corruption.
The ranking member's objection to the meeting is heard. We'll now move on to a
Mr. Chairman, may I
roundtable.
be heard on the objection?
The ranking member of the subcommittee, Mr. Lynch, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, ranking, and to my colleagues on the Agricultural Committee as well, Ranking Member Waters has objected to this hearing because of the clear conflicts of interest between President Trump and his family's personal crypto ventures and the legislative proposals our committee are considering. President Trump and his family are exploiting the presidency to enrich themselves using their personal crypto business, World Liberty Financial. Never in American history has a sitting president so blatantly violated the ethics laws.
I asked the ranking
reclaiming
member.
my time,
The gentleman was offered a moment to comment. The gentleman was offered a moment to
President
comment
Trump's
on the
crypto
objection.
dealings are
The
estimated
gentleman is
to
no
be a
longer
total
recognized.
of $2.9 billion
The gentleman
in
is no
value,
longer
and nearly 40% of his
You will
total
be
wealth
recognized during
between
this hearing.
issuing a meme
If
coin, governance
the
token,
gentleman,
and
Mr. Lynch, would be
USDI
noticed if he was in a
stablecoin,
hearing.
of which
He would have
75%
the
of the
ability
proceeds
to speak
go
under
to
the
the Trump
protections that are
family.
provided in the
Every
House
detail
rules.
of his dealings contained
Ranking
a
Member
conflict
Lynch, you are
of
no
interest.
longer recognized by the chair. The gentlelady's objection is heard. We'll now move into
Mr. Chairman,
the
I ask that
roundtable.
my written
objection.
remarks be entered into the record.
It is too bad for the ranking member that it is not a hearing. If it was a hearing, the ranking member would be protected by House rules. There was an objection from the ranking member of the full
insists
committee.
on her objection. I object.
The committee, the objection is heard. The objection is heard, and we will now move into a roundtable. We want to hear from our participants who've traveled to share their expertise with us. And I would ask that participants make brief remarks. To keep our members on track, I'd also ask that they limit their comments and questions to 5 minutes. To open the roundtable, I'd like to ask Agriculture Subcommittee on Commodity Markets, Digital Assets, and Rural Development Chairman Johnson to offer remarks.
Well, a rose by any other name smells just as sweet. This is the second public event these two committees have done together. I think it's a remarkable degree of cooperation and partnership, and I think it builds on the work of last term where Democrats and Republicans, ag and financial services worked together to get things done. And for me, today is we get so lost in some of the terminology. You know, what about the Howey test, and what about this, and what about, custody, and these things matter, but ultimately to me it comes down to two gentlemen, Mark and Mike. The Ag Subcommittee, or maybe it was the full committee, I forget, had a really good hearing a couple of weeks ago. where we talked about the real world applications that, and Don Davis was there and helped me manage that subcommittee hearing, where we talked about the real world use cases of digital assets and blockchain technology and how they can enhance the lives of everyday Americans. Mark Tague, a fourth-generation cattleman in Oklahoma, he co-founded Cattle Proof to improve those cattle markets. Mike Horton, an engineer in California, developed GeoNet to create an accessible worldwide precision mapping network. These are real-world problems that these gentlemen have used blockchain technology to help solve. Without tokens, the blockchain wouldn't work, and neither Cattle Proof nor GeoNet would exist. And so let's not forget these stories as we talk through the CFTC and the SEC and jurisdictional battles and the Howey test and decentralization, exempt offerings, and secondary trading. This legal discussion only matters because if we get it right, it will empower entrepreneurs and it will encourage innovation. If we give Americans like Mark and Mike certainty about how to build with digital assets, they will create better services that improve our country. So to me, that's really the point of the hearing. The regulatory framework only matters because innovation matters. And I do want to close, Mr. Chairman, by thanking our panelists for traveling here, for taking their time to prepare their remarks and to help make sure that we get a better product. I would want to thank my colleagues on the other side of the aisle who stay here and continue to do their work. Ultimately, the world is run by those who show up. And for members who've shown up, they are giving a beautiful gift to these committees, to the House, and ultimately to the American people. With that, I yield.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the ranking member of the Agriculture Committee, Mr. Davis, to offer remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the witnesses who are here this morning. I strongly believe the future of American innovation depends on our ability to lead in the digital economy. Digital assets and blockchain technology are not passing trends. They are foundational technologies with the potential of revolutionizing everything from financial services and supply chains to how we deliver aid, store data, and connect rural communities to global markets. And if we want to ensure that innovation continues to flourish, we must provide a clear and forward-looking regulatory framework. And that means working to bring certainty to innovators, investors, and consumers. We must clarify the roles of the SEC and the CFTC. Reduce regulatory fragmentation and ensure the rules reflect the unique nature of this technology. I also emphasize the enormous potential digital assets hold for communities like the ones that I represent in eastern North Carolina. This technology could unlock new pathways for rural development, financial inclusion, and economic resilience. But that can only happen if we create a policy environment that fosters innovation while upholding market integrity and investor protection. Let's be clear. American leadership in this space is not guaranteed. Other countries are moving quickly to attract talent, capital, and infrastructure. If we do not act with vision and purpose, we risk ceding that leadership, and with it, the value that define our markets. I look forward to working with my colleagues to ensure the United States remain a global leader. Thank you. I look forward to hearing from our witnesses. I yield back.
I thank my colleague for his remark. I'll recognize myself. But before I begin my remarks, I would like to acknowledge what just occurred. For over a month, the majority on both the Financial Services Committee and the Agriculture Committee worked in good faith to organize this subcommittee hearing, desired to foster a really meaningful dialogue on digital assets and the legislative solutions needed to close the existing regulatory gaps. And while some of my colleagues have chosen to leave the room, our work continues undeterred. This legislation is simply too important to not engage in an open, public discussion about how the United States can lead in Web3. I remain hopeful that we will soon recognize the stakes and the critical importance of robust, nonpartisan engagement in this process. More than 15 years ago, a 9-page document, the Bitcoin White Paper, sparked a shift in how we think about money, trust, and value. The idea that sparked the digital asset ecosystem. Innovators have since built decentralized networks that offer services once thought unimaginable. But innovation has not followed a straight line. Outdated regulatory frameworks and a regulation by enforcement approach by then Chair Gary Gensler and the Biden administration stifled clarity and pushed jobs, investment, and leadership offshore. Worse, the uncertainty has exposed consumers to greater risk from fraud and mismanagement. Congress has both the opportunity and the responsibility to act. We must pass comprehensive, bipartisan legislation that provides clarity and fosters responsible innovation. Last month, Chairman French Hill, G.T. Thompson introduced 6 core principles that now form the basis of the discussion draft on market structure released yesterday. Today's roundtable will evaluate those principles and address key questions about 1, asset classification, 2, agency jurisdiction over centralized intermediaries, 3, reducing regulatory fragmentation, and 4, establishing guardrails that support innovation. To me, the path forward is clear. The choices that we make now will determine whether the United States remains a global leader in digital finance or if we fall behind. And I thank our panelists for being here today, and I look forward to a robust and thoughtful conversation. I'll now recognize the ranking member of the Committee on Agriculture, Ms. Craig, to offer remarks.
Thank you so much to our witnesses for being here today. This is a really important conversation. I'm here because I think we need to be engaged and part of the discussion to agree on the rules of the road as they relate to crypto. It isn't going away, and we have a responsibility to be here and be part of the solution. If we're successful in working together, then legitimate enterprises will innovate and thrive, and consumers and retail investors will be protected. If we fail to find a bipartisan solution to these pressing questions, we will witness more scandals, and consumers will not have the protections that they so clearly need. It's important and it's legitimate to call out the self-dealing from the Trump administration related to hawking meme coins from the White House. It's corrupt, it's wrong, and it makes this process of coming together to regulate crypto more partisan than it needs to be. While these conversations may be difficult, they are important for our constituents. I'm pleased that we're moving forward with this roundtable today, and with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady for her remarks. The gentleman, the chairman of the Committee on Agriculture, Mr. Thompson, is recognized to offer remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Stile. For 2.5 years, our committees have worked together on legislation writing rules of the road for digital asset markets. I'm proud of what we've accomplished last Congress with FIT, and is a great example of what can happen when we work together. Unfortunately, today is an example of what happens when we cannot work together. We wind up with a second-best solution. But the discussion today will go on. I appreciate all our colleagues who have chosen to make time for these witnesses and this discussion today. We have a rare opportunity to make law this Congress and to be the authors of legislation which will change the way we use the internet and how we interact in the digital commodity. I want to thank Chairman Hill, Chairman Stile, and the entire membership of the Financial Services Committee for your continued partnership in this work. I would also be remiss if I didn't recognize our terrific committee leadership and Ranking Member Craig, Chairman Johnson, and Ranking Member Davis. We're blessed with an abundance of thoughtful legislators who are eager to work on digital asset legislation. Finally, welcome and thank you to our witnesses, and especially a warm welcome back to Chairman Benham. I appreciate all the time and effort you each have spent preparing for today, and I look forward to the discussion and yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. Does the subcommittee chair, Mr. Lynch, offer, are you interested in offering comments on the topic?
I would like to address the roundtable, which I did not before.
I will recognize that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. President Trump's crypto dealings are estimated to total about $2.9 billion in value and nearly 40% of his total wealth. between using his meme coin, governance token, and USDI stablecoin, of which 75% of the proceeds go to the Trump family, every detail of his dealings contain a conflict of interest. Last week, the New York Times released an extensive investigation outlining President Trump's many conflicts of interest. To put it bluntly, I quote, "World Liberty Financial has eviscerated the boundary between private enterprise and government policy in ways without precedent in American history." Last Thursday, I know this hearing's been planned and this gathering has been planned for a while, but last Thursday, in a meeting in Dubai, Trump's family's company made a deal with the Dubai investor to contribute to invest $2 billion that will benefit the Trump family. There's a clear. I understand crypto. I understand the other issues here, but this is a mechanism by which other people outside foreign interests can actually influence our president. Not just this one, but in the future as well. And I think that's a relevant issue before this forum. Thank you. And I do thank the witnesses for their willingness to come here and assist the roundtable with its work. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The chairman of the Financial Services Committee, Chairman Hill, is recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to thank our witnesses again for your time being away from your missions to share your views with us today. As noted, look, we provided the minority 6 weeks of notice and lavishly structured a joint process between the Ag Committee, the Financial Services Committee, minority and majority. So I just continue to be disappointed in Ranking Member Waters' decision to exit the meeting and object. In the 118th Congress, we made tremendous progress. We made significant strides to build bipartisan, bicameral consensus on how to craft a regulatory framework for digital assets. 71 Democrats in the last Congress joined Republicans in passing last Congress's regulatory framework view that Mr. Thompson and I offered, Fit 21. It's the precursor of the work we're doing here today. We've turned the page, we're approaching it in a fresh way, and this roundtable is essential to getting new views on how to go in a different direction. To my friends on the other side of the aisle, our door is always open. No regulatory framework that's fit for purpose for digital assets that provides oversight, development, and innovation in America, that's a failure. Just as no clarity for what is a quality dollar-backed stable coin, if we don't do that, that's a failure, because that leaves the regulatory gap that was pointed out thoroughly by both President Biden and President Trump. And this committee, working together with Ag and Financial Services on a bicameral, bipartisan basis, we're going to get the job done. And I want to thank all of you for being here today. I want to thank our chair, and I will yield back.
The gentleman yields back. I'd like to briefly introduce our participants today. Mr. James Rothman is General Counsel at Hahn Ventures, a venture capital firm that supports cryptocurrency-related startups. Mr. Alex Miller is the Chief Executive Officer at Hero Systems,